I drove to my husband's mistress's house that cold morning, determined to look her in the eye and demand answers to the questions that had been destroying me from the inside out. But when that door opened, what I saw standing there wasn't just her. It was the complete annihilation of everything I thought I knew about my life. The purse slipped from my trembling hands, crashing to the porch floor, and in that single, frozen moment, I understood that betrayal has layers I'd never imagined possible. But before I take you into what happened next, I want to pause here. I'm so glad you're with me right now. If you're watching this, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. I need to know my story of revenge is reaching people who understand. Drop a comment telling me where you're listening from. I want to see how far this truth has traveled, because what I'm about to share changed me forever. The dashboard clock read 6:47 a.m. when I finally pulled onto Sycamore Lane. I hadn't slept. Not 1 minute. How could I, when every time I closed my eyes, I saw that text message glowing in the darkness? The one I'd found on Darius's phone 3 nights ago. The one that had been eating me alive ever since. Can't wait to see you tomorrow morning, baby. I'll be ready for you. Tomorrow morning. Not evening. Not after work. Morning. The cold November air bit at my face as I stepped out of my car, my breath forming small clouds that disappeared as quickly as my certainty about everything I'd believed in. The street was quiet, still sleeping, the kind of peaceful suburban block where families lived, where people kissed their spouses goodbye and actually went to work, where husbands didn't lie. My hand shook as I clutched the crumpled piece of paper, her address, copied from the GPS history on Darius's phone when he was in the shower. 2847, Sycamore Lane. I'd stared at that number so many times in the past 72 hours that it was burned into my brain like a brand. What does she look like? That question had become a mantra, a torture device I wielded against myself in the darkest hours of the night. What does she have that I don't? Is she younger? Prettier? Does she laugh at his jokes differently? Does she make him feel like a man in ways I failed to? That same morning, just 2 hours ago, Darius had kissed me on the forehead in our kitchen. Casual. Routine. He'd grabbed his travel mug, the one I'd bought him for our 5th anniversary, and smiled at me. Running early today, babe. Big presentation to prep for. Don't wait up if I'm late tonight. I'd smiled back. Actually smiled. Told him good luck. Watched him drive away in the car I'd helped him buy, wearing the watch I'd saved up for, carrying the confidence I'd spent years building in him. And now here I was, standing on another woman's porch at dawn, about to confront the person who'd been stealing pieces of my husband in the hours I thought he was building our future. I walked up the 3 wooden steps, each one creaking under my weight like they were announcing my arrival. My heart hammered so hard I could feel it in my throat, in my temples, in my fingertips as I raised my fist to knock. I'd rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. I'd practiced what I would say, how I would stand, the look I would give her. I'd be strong, dignified. I'd demand answers. I'd make her see me as a real person, not just an obstacle to whatever fantasy she'd been living. I knocked. 3 sharp raps that shattered the morning silence. Footsteps inside. Movement. The sound of a lock turning. The door swung open, and the entire world tilted sideways. It wasn't her. Standing there, frozen in the doorway in nothing but black boxers and an open bathrobe, hair disheveled from sleep, jaw dropping in slow-motion shock, was Darius. My husband. My husband. The purse slipped from my hand, hitting the porch floor with a dull thud that sounded like a gunshot in my ears. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Couldn't process what my eyes were showing me. He didn't go to work early. He came here. He came home to her. Alicia. His voice cracked, his hand gripping the doorframe like he might collapse without it. And then, behind him she appeared. Tamara. I knew her name from the text messages I'd finally forced myself to read. But knowing her name hadn't prepared me for seeing her. Young, God, she couldn't have been more than 25. Curves that made my 42-year-old body feel like a relic. Dark hair cascading over bare shoulders, wearing a silk robe that barely covered her thighs, the kind of effortless beauty that didn't need trying. She was rubbing sleep from her eyes, Clearly just woken up, clearly comfortable in that space, clearly his. The realization crashed over me like ice water. He didn't sneak away for stolen hours. He didn't lie about late meetings or business trips. He had a second life, a morning routine, a home that wasn't ours. I stumbled backward, my heel catching on the edge of the step. Darius reached out, like he had any right to steady me, like his touch was something I could bear. "Don't," I whispered, but it came out broken, shattered, nothing like the strong confrontation I'd imagined. Because this wasn't just an affair. This was replacement. I don't remember driving away from that house. One moment I was standing on that porch, staring at the man I'd spent 17 years loving, and the next I was parked in an empty grocery store lot 3 miles away, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles had gone white. 17 years. That number kept circling in my mind like a vulture. 17 years of my life, poured into a man who was waking up in another woman's bed while I made his coffee at home. But it hadn't always been like this. God, it hadn't always been this way. I met Darius when I was 25 and he was 27, both of us working at a downtown accounting firm, me as a junior analyst, him as an ambitious associate who talked about partnership like it was destiny. He had dreams back then. Big, beautiful, impossible dreams that made my heart race when he shared them over cheap takeout in his studio apartment. He was going to build something, make something of himself, change our lives completely. And I believed him. More than that, I invested in him with everything I had. When he wanted to go back for his MBA, I picked up weekend shifts at a retail store, came home with aching feet and forced smiles, handed him my paychecks so he could focus on studying instead of worrying about rent. I proofread his papers at midnight, quizzed him before exams, rubbed his shoulders when the stress made him snap at me. "I'm going to make this worth it, Alicia," he'd promise, kissing my forehead. "Everything you're doing for me, I'm going to spend the rest of my life making it worth it." I believed him then. We got married 3 months after his graduation, a small ceremony in my parents' backyard because we were still broke, still building, still believing that sacrifice now meant abundance later. I wore my mother's wedding dress, altered to fit. He wore a suit from a thrift store that I dry cleaned twice to make presentable. But we were happy. God, we were so happy. The golden years came next, those beautiful, exhausting years when everything felt possible. He landed a position at a prestigious firm. I got promoted. We bought our first house, a modest 3-bedroom in a neighborhood with good schools because we were planning for children. And then came our babies. Marcus first, then Sophia 3 years later. I watched Darius hold our son for the first time, tears streaming down his face, and I thought, this is it. This is everything I ever wanted. We had family dinners every Sunday. Vacations to the beach, where we built sandcastles and took blurry photos that now cover our hallway walls. Christmases where the kids shrieked over presents while Darius and I exchanged exhausted, happy smiles over our coffee mugs. We had a life together. A real life built on foundations I thought were solid. But somewhere along the way, so gradually I didn't notice it happening, those foundations started cracking beneath my feet. It started small. Work dinners that ran late. Weekend conferences that required his attendance. Evenings when he'd come home and head straight for his laptop instead of asking about my day, about the kids' days, about anything beyond the walls of his own ambition. His phone developed a password I didn't know. Not that I'd ever checked it before, but suddenly it felt like a locked door between us. He started dressing differently. Better. Designer shirts instead of the department store ones I used to buy him. Cologne I didn't recognize. A new gym membership that meant he left the house at 5:30 in the morning 3 times a week. "Looking good, babe," I'd tell him, trying to sound supportive instead of confused. "Just trying to stay healthy," he'd reply, not quite meeting my eyes. The physical distance grew next. Kisses became pecks. Hand-holding became rare. Our bedroom became a place where we slept on opposite sides, backs turned, the space between us growing wider every night. I blamed myself. Of course, I blamed myself. Maybe age had changed me in ways I couldn't see. Maybe the stretch marks from carrying his children made me less attractive. Maybe the exhaustion of managing a household and a career while he climbed higher and higher made me boring. Predictable. Old news. Maybe I'd stopped being whatever it was he needed. I started trying harder. New clothes. New makeup. Suggestions for date nights that he'd agree to, but then cancel last minute. Work crisis, babe. I'm so sorry. Always work. Always something more important than us. I told myself it was temporary. Told myself that successful men had demanding careers, that I needed to be more understanding, more patient, more something that would bring him back to me. But sitting in that parking lot, staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror, my eyes red from crying, my hands still shaking from what I'd witnessed, I finally understood the truth. I wasn't losing him. He'd already left years ago. I just hadn't been invited to the goodbye. I drove home in a fog, my body operating on autopilot while my mind splintered into 1,000 sharp pieces. The house was empty. Marcus was at college 3 states away, Sophia spending the week at my sister's place. Just me and the crushing silence of a home that suddenly felt like a mausoleum. My hands were still shaking as I locked the door behind me, leaned against it, and let myself slide down to the floor. But I didn't cry. Not anymore. Something had shifted in that parking lot. Something cold and clear had settled into the space where my heart used to be. Grief was a luxury I couldn't afford right now. I needed answers. I needed to understand the full scope of what had been done to me. I needed the truth, even if it destroyed me. I started with the signs. All those little moments I'd explained away, rationalized, ignored because believing them meant accepting something I wasn't ready to face. The early mornings. Darius had been leaving the house before dawn for almost a year now. New workout routine, he'd said, trying to beat the morning traffic to the office. I'd believed him, because why wouldn't I? Why would I question my husband wanting to be healthier, more productive? But he wasn't going to the gym. He wasn't going to the office early. He was going to her. The late nights came next. How many dinners had I eaten alone, reheating his plate and covering it with foil, only to find it untouched in the morning? How many times had he texted, "Client emergency, don't wait up," while I'd fallen asleep on the couch waiting anyway? The missed holidays. Last Christmas, he'd been stuck at work until almost 9 at night. Sophia had cried because Daddy wasn't there to watch her open presents. I'd made excuses for him. Told our daughter that her father was working hard for our family. Was he with Tamara that Christmas morning? Waking up in her bed while I comforted our daughter alone? My stomach turned, but I forced myself to keep going. To keep remembering. To stop protecting him from my own scrutiny. I walked upstairs to our bedroom. Our bedroom, though now I wondered if it had ever really been ours. His phone sat charging on his nightstand, the same place he left it every night. My hands trembled as I picked it up, the screen lighting up with his lock screen photo, our family picture from last summer's vacation. The 4 of us smiling on the beach, my arm around his waist, completely unaware that I was already being replaced. The passcode. He'd changed it months ago, but there was one number he'd used for everything since college. Our first apartment number. I typed it in. 2847. The phone unlocked instantly. Something inside me cracked. He'd kept our old passcode. Some small piece of our history still mattered enough to him that he hadn't bothered creating something new. Or maybe he was just lazy. Maybe I'd never mattered enough to hide from properly. I opened his messages, my breath coming faster now. There she was. Saved in his contacts not as Tamara, but as T, with a red heart emoji next to it. A heart emoji. My husband had given his mistress a heart emoji. I scrolled through their conversation, each message a dagger sliding between my ribs. Missing you already, baby. Can't stop thinking about this morning. You looked so beautiful sleeping. Photos loaded next. Her in lingerie. Her in his dress shirt, the blue one I'd bought him for his birthday. Her kissing him, his hands in her hair, both of them smiling like they'd invented happiness. Hotel receipts appeared in his email when I opened it. The Marriott downtown. The boutique place near the waterfront. The bed and breakfast 2 towns over that I'd suggested for our anniversary and he'd said was too expensive. Too expensive for me. Not for her. I kept digging, kept pulling thread after thread, watching my entire marriage unravel before my eyes. He'd taken her to restaurants I'd never been to, bought her jewelry I'd never received, sent her flowers every Friday, while I couldn't remember the last time he'd brought me anything but excuses. I called the apartment building on Sycamore Lane, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. Hi there, I'm trying to reach my husband. Darius Thompson? I believe he's been staying at your building. The woman's voice was friendly, unsuspecting. Oh yes. Mr. Thompson in 2847. He's such a nice tenant. Been here about 8 months now. Would you like me to connect you to his unit? 8 months. 8 months. I hung up without responding, the phone clattering onto the bed. He hadn't stumbled into an affair during a moment of weakness. He hadn't made a mistake at a work conference or fallen for someone during a vulnerable time. He'd rented her an apartment, made morning routines with her, built a parallel existence while I'd been home folding his laundry and planning our anniversary dinner. This wasn't infidelity. This was calculated replacement. He didn't stumble into an affair. He built a second life. I called my sister Nina at 7 in the morning. She answered on the second ring, her voice thick with sleep but instantly alert when she heard the tremor in mine. Alicia? What happened? What's wrong? I need you to come over. Right now, please. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Flat, mechanical, like I was reading from a script. And Nina? Bring your laptop. The good one you use for work. Nina was a forensic accountant, the person corporations called when they suspected embezzlement or fraud. She'd spent 15 years following money trails that people thought they'd hidden. If anyone could help me understand the full scope of what Darius had done, it was her. She arrived 40 minutes later, still in sweatpants, her laptop bag slung over her shoulder, and 2 large coffees in hand. One look at my face, and she set everything down, pulling me into a hug I didn't know I needed until I was wrapped in it. Tell me everything, she said quietly. So I did. Every detail. The texts, the address, the door opening to reveal my husband in another woman's home at dawn. The 8 months of tenancy. The photos, the receipts, the heart emoji that somehow felt more intimate than anything else. Nina's expression hardened with each word, her jaw setting in that way that meant someone was about to regret crossing her family. Give me access to your bank statements, she said, already opening her laptop. All of them. Joint accounts, credit cards, everything. What are you looking for? I asked, though part of me already knew. Part of me had known for a while, but had been too terrified to look. Everything, Nina replied grimly. Because men like Darius don't just build second lives with their time. They fund them too. It took her 3 hours to find the first thread. 3 hours of watching my sister's face grow darker and darker as she pulled up spreadsheets, cross-referenced transactions, and tracked money I'd assumed was going toward our future. Alicia, she finally said, turning the laptop toward me. Look at this. Monthly automatic payments. $500 to something called TM Consulting Services. Every month for the past 14 months, withdrawn from our joint checking account. TM? I whispered. Tamara. It gets worse, Nina said softly. Look at these. More transactions appeared. A furniture store charge for $3,000 last March. Apartment essentials. The note said in Darius's handwriting on the bank statement. I'd assumed it was for Marcus's dorm room. It wasn't. A jewelry store purchase for $1,200 in June. I'd never received jewelry in June. My birthday was in September, and he'd given me a gift card that year. Said he wasn't sure what I'd like anymore. But he'd known exactly what Tamara would like. Utility payments to an address on Sycamore Lane. Internet service. Electricity. Water. My husband was paying her bills with money from our joint account. Money I'd deposited from my own paycheck. How much? I asked, my voice barely audible. How much of our money has he spent on her? Nina was quiet for a long moment, her fingers flying across the keyboard. When she looked up, her eyes were filled with fury on my behalf. At least $40,000. Probably more if I dig deeper into cash withdrawals and credit cards. $40,000. Money that could have been college savings, vacation funds, retirement contributions. Money I'd earned through late nights and early mornings, through sacrifices and second shifts. Spent on another woman's life. There's more, Nina said, pulling up something else. The lease agreement on that apartment. I called a contact at the property management company. Want to guess whose name is on it? Hers, I whispered. And his, Nina corrected. Joint lease. He co-signed. Used his income verification to help her qualify. That apartment? He didn't just pay for it. He helped her get it in the first place. My hands curled into fists, nails digging into my palms. The pain was good. Real. Something to focus on besides the images flooding my mind. I need to know more, I said. Everything about her. About them together. Nina hesitated. Alicia, are you sure? Sometimes knowing makes it worse. It can't get worse. Please, Nina. She nodded slowly, pulling up a social media profile. I found her online. Tamara Morrison, 26 years old, works at a boutique downtown. She paused. The same boutique where Darius bought you that scarf last Christmas. The scarf I'd thought was so thoughtful. He'd probably picked it out while Tamara was helping other customers, maybe stolen kisses with her in the back room during her break. Nina clicked through the profile, showing me photos of a life I didn't know existed. Tamara at restaurants I recognized, places Darius had said were business dinners. Tamara wearing earrings I'd seen in our credit card statements, charges I'd assumed were gifts for me that never materialized. And then Nina pulled up something that made my blood run cold. I talked to some of the neighbors at her building, she said quietly. Told them I was looking to rent there, asked about the community. They mentioned the nice couple in 2847. They think they're a couple, I said flatly. Worse. Nina's voice dropped even lower. Two people called him her fiancé. Said they'd seen them coming and going like any normal couple. Morning coffee runs together. Groceries. One neighbor saw them kissing goodbye before work every morning for months. Every morning. While I was home making his coffee, packing his lunch, maintaining the fiction of our marriage. He wasn't sneaking around, I said slowly, the realization settling over me like ice water. He was living openly with her. Like they were the real couple. Like she was his actual life. Nina closed the laptop, her expression pained. Alicia, I don't think this is an affair anymore. I know what you think, I interrupted. You think he wasn't cheating on our marriage. I stood up, walking to the window, staring out at the perfectly manicured lawn Darius paid a service to maintain. Another expense. Another piece of the life we'd supposedly built together. He wasn't cheating on the marriage, I continued, my voice steady despite the fury rising in my chest. He was phasing it out. Darius came home that evening at his usual time, 6:30, the hour he'd trained me to expect him. Not the real time he woke up, not the morning hours he spent with her, but the performative window when he remembered to play husband. I was in the kitchen when I heard his key in the lock, my hands steady as I chopped vegetables for dinner I had no intention of eating. Nina had left an hour ago, but not before helping me understand something crucial. I couldn't confront him. Not yet. Not until I had everything I needed. Hey babe, he called out, his voice carrying that false cheerfulness I'd mistaken for normalcy. Something smells good. He walked into the kitchen, loosening his tie, the expensive silk one I hadn't bought him. His eyes met mine briefly before sliding away, and I saw it. The guilt. The calculation. The relief that I was still playing my part. I set down the knife carefully, turned to face him, and let my shoulders slump. Darius, we need to talk, I said softly. His entire body tensed. About what? Is everything okay? I don't know, I replied, forcing my voice to waver. That's what I need to figure out. I feel like we've been so distant lately. Like you're not really here, even when you're home. I watched him process this, saw him decide how to play it. Concern flickered across his face, practiced hollow. Alicia, honey, I know work has been demanding. I'm sorry if you felt neglected. He moved closer, reaching for my hand. I let him take it, though my skin crawled at his touch. What can I do to make it better? This was the moment. The carefully crafted vulnerability that would give me everything I needed. I paused, looking down at our joined hands. I think I need some space. Some time to clear my head. Maybe I should stay with Nina for a while. Just a week or two. The relief that flooded his face was instantaneous. He tried to hide it, tried to arrange his features into something resembling concern, but I'd seen it. That split-second flash of pure, undisguised relief. Are you sure? He asked, but his voice betrayed him. There was hope in it. Eagerness poorly disguised as reluctance. I mean, if you think that's what you need, I understand. But I don't want you to feel like you have to leave. It's not about having to, I said, pulling my hand away and wrapping my arms around myself. I just need time to think. About us. About what I want. I've been feeling so lost lately. Of course, he said quickly. Too quickly. Take all the time you need. Really. Don't rush back. Focus on yourself. Don't rush back. He couldn't have made it clearer if he'd pushed me out the door himself. Thank you for understanding, I whispered, letting a tear slip down my cheek. It wasn't hard to cry. I just had to think about what he'd taken from me. He pulled me into a hug, and I forced myself not to stiffen, not to shove him away. His cologne, different from what he used to wear, filled my nose. I wondered if Tamara had picked it out. I love you, Alicia, he said into my hair. The lie was so smooth, so practiced, I almost believed he believed it himself. Nina returned at midnight with her colleague Marcus, not my son, but a security specialist who owed her a favor. They brought equipment in black cases, professional-grade cameras so small they disappeared into smoke detectors, picture frames, and air vents. Living room, kitchen, bedroom, and his office, Nina instructed quietly. We need full coverage of common areas. This is legal? I asked, though I wasn't sure I cared. It's your house, Marcus replied, his voice low. You have every right to document what happens in your own home. Just don't tell anyone about the recordings until you're ready to use them. They worked efficiently, transforming our home into a surveillance net that Darius would never notice. Every camera had live feed capability, streaming directly to an app on my phone. You'll be able to watch in real time, Nina explained, showing me the interface. And it records everything to a secure cloud. Even if he finds the cameras somehow, the footage is safe. I stared at the screen showing multiple angles of my empty living room. What if I'm wrong? What if he doesn't? He will, Nina interrupted gently. Men like him always do. They can't help themselves once they think they've won. By 2 a.m, everything was in place. I packed a suitcase, slowly, deliberately, making sure Darius heard me moving around upstairs. Making sure he knew I was really leaving. He was in bed, pretending to sleep, when I paused in the doorway. I'll call you tomorrow, I said softly. Take care of yourself, he murmured back, not even opening his eyes. I drove to Nina's apartment, but I didn't stay there. Instead, I checked into a hotel 6 blocks from my house. Close enough to get there in minutes if needed, far enough that Darius would never look. And then I waited. The app on my phone glowed in the darkness of my hotel room. For camera angles. Our entire first floor visible. I watched Darius get up at 5:30 a.m, watched him shower and dress, watched him actually smile to himself as he checked his phone. Watched him leave for Sycamore Lane, thinking he'd finally gotten what he wanted. He thought I'd crumbled. Thought I'd given him permission to live his real life while I hid away, licking my wounds. He had no idea I was watching everything. No idea I was recording it all. No idea that his worst nightmare was just beginning. I didn't sleep that first night. How could I, when my phone screen showed me everything I'd feared and worse, so much worse than I'd imagined. 24 hours. That's all it took. 24 hours after I'd left for Nina's, after I'd played the broken, confused wife who needed space, Darius brought Tamara into our home. I watched it happen in real time from my hotel room, my hand pressed against my mouth to keep from screaming. The front door opened at 9 p.m. Darius walked in first, holding the door open like a gentleman, and then she followed.
Tamara.
In my house, walking across my threshold like she belonged there. She was wearing a red dress that hugged every curve, her hair perfectly styled, heels clicking against the hardwood floors I'd chosen, on the rug I'd spent weeks picking out. "This is beautiful, baby." Her voice came through the camera's audio, light and excited. "It's so much bigger than my place." "It's ours now," Darius replied, and my heart stopped. "She's going to be gone for a while. We can finally have some real time together." Ours now. Like I'd already been erased. Like 17 years of marriage could be deleted with a 2-week absence. They moved through my living room, Tamara touching everything. My throw pillows, my framed photos, my bookshelf. Darius poured them wine from the bottle I'd been saving for our anniversary next month. "Give me a tour," she said, wrapping her arms around his neck. I watched them climb my stairs, disappear into the bedroom camera's view. My bedroom. The room where I'd given birth to the children Darius had cradled. The room where we'd whispered dreams and promises in the dark. Tamara walked straight to my closet, throwing the doors open. "Oh God, Darius." She laughed, that cruel, tinkling sound making my teeth clench. "These clothes are so outdated. Does she shop at the same place as my grandmother?" He chuckled. Actually chuckled. "She's always been more practical than fashionable." "Practical," Tamara repeated, pulling out my favorite blue cardigan, the one I wore when I needed comfort. "Is that what we're calling boring now?" She tossed it on the floor. Then she moved to my dresser, opened my jewelry box. The pearls my grandmother had left me. The simple gold bracelet Darius had given me when Marcus was born. She held them up to the light, her nose wrinkling. "These are such old lady things," she said dismissively. "When we redo this room, we're throwing all of this out." "Fresh start, right, baby?" "Whatever you want," Darius agreed, kissing her neck. "We'll replace everything. Make it feel like us." I had to set the phone down, had to press my fist against my chest where my heart was trying to break through my ribs. Breathe in. Hold it. Breathe out. When I looked again, Tamara had found my bathroom. She was holding my robe, the soft terry cloth one I'd bought myself last Mother's Day because no one else had remembered to get me anything. She slipped it on over her dress, parading in front of the mirror. "This is actually comfortable," she said, surprised. "I'm keeping this one. The rest can go to Goodwill." They ordered takeout, ate it at my kitchen table. Tamara sat in my chair, the one facing the window, the one where I'd drunk my coffee every morning for 7 years. She fed Darius bites of lo mein, and he kissed the sauce off her fingers. At 11:30, they went back upstairs. I forced myself to keep watching as they climbed into my bed, as Tamara pulled back my duvet, the one I'd washed just 3 days ago, and settled into my pillows like she'd been sleeping there for years. "This mattress is better than mine," she murmured, stretching luxuriously. "Everything here is better," Darius replied, his hand trailing down her side. "And it's all ours now." I turned off the bedroom camera feed. I couldn't watch anymore. Whatever happened next, I didn't need to see it recorded in the bed where I'd slept beside him for over a decade. The next morning, I watched Tamara wake up in my bedroom, wearing one of Darius's t-shirts. She padded downstairs to my kitchen, opened my refrigerator, made coffee with my machine. She belonged there, her body language said. She was home now. My phone rang at 10 o'clock. Darius's name lit up the screen. I answered on the third ring, keeping my voice small and tired. "Hey," I said quietly. "Hey babe, just checking in. How are you doing?" His voice was so gentle, so concerned. The performance was flawless. Behind him, through the camera feed I was still watching, I could see Tamara moving around my kitchen in my robe, eating cereal from my bowls. "I'm okay," I lied, just trying to sort through my thoughts. "Take your time," he said, and I heard the smile in his voice. "Seriously, Alicia, don't rush back. Stay as long as you need. Focus on yourself. I want you to feel better. Don't rush back. Thank you for being so understanding," I whispered. "Of course. I love you." The words made my stomach turn. He was standing in our kitchen, watching his mistress, wearing my clothes, eating my food, living my life, while telling me he loved me. "Love you too," I forced out, then hung up before he could hear my voice crack. I watched them for 3 more days. Watched Tamara parade through my house, critiquing my furniture, planning renovations, talking about paint colors and new curtains. Watched her try on my clothes and jewelry, keeping what she liked, and tossing the rest into trash bags. Watched Darius encourage it all, his arm around her waist, nodding along to her plans for their future in my home. They acted like my existence was a stain to be scrubbed out. On day 4, Nina called me at 7 in the morning, her voice tight, with barely contained rage. "You need to come to my place. Right now, Alicia. I found something, and you need to see this before you do anything else." I'd been watching the camera since 5 o'clock, watching Darius and Tamara have breakfast in my kitchen like a couple from a home renovation show, discussing which walls to knock down. I was numb to it now, operating on some level beyond pain. But Nina's voice cut through that numbness. She sounded scared for me. I was at her apartment in 15 minutes. She had papers spread across her dining table like evidence at a crime scene. Bank statements, legal documents, printed emails. Her laptop showed spreadsheets color-coded in ways that made my head spin. "Sit down," she said gently, "because what I'm about to show you is beyond infidelity. This is systematic, calculated, and it's been going on longer than we thought." I sat, my hands gripping the edge of the table. Nina pulled up a bank statement first. "Remember those transfers to TM Consulting?" I dug deeper. They started 18 months ago, not 14. And they're not just $500 a month anymore. She showed me the progression. $500 at first, then $750, then $1,000. The most recent transfers were $1,500 monthly, like clockwork. "He's been increasing them," I said flatly, "paying more and more of her expenses. Not just her rent," Nina continued, pulling up more documents. "He opened a joint savings account with her 6 months ago. Look at the deposits." The numbers made my vision blur. $3,000, $5,000, $10,000. Money systematically moved from our accounts into theirs, labeled as business investments or consulting fees. "That's over $70,000, I whispered. "Nina, that's Marcus's college fund. That's the money we were saving for." "I know," she interrupted gently. "And it gets worse. He took out a line of credit against your house 3 months ago. $50,000. The room tilted. "Against our house? He can't do that without my signature." Nina's expression was grim. "He can if he has power of attorney for financial decisions. Remember when you two updated your wills last year? He convinced you to sign paperwork giving him authority to make financial decisions if you were ever incapacitated." "But I'm not incapacitated," I said, my voice rising. "I'm perfectly capable of—" "He's been building a case that you're not," Nina interrupted, and the ice in her voice made my blood run cold. "I called Sarah from your book club, then Jennifer from the PDA, then your neighbor, Mrs. Chen. Alicia, he's been telling people you're emotionally unstable." The words hit me like physical blows. "What do you mean, unstable?" Nina pulled out her phone, showing me screenshots of text messages she'd gotten from mutual friends. "Darius mentioned Alicia's been struggling lately. Depression, he thinks. Is she okay? He said she's been forgetting things, acting paranoid. I'm worried about her. Poor guy. He said she accused him of cheating with no evidence. Just completely out of nowhere. He's been laying groundwork," Nina said quietly. "Telling people you're paranoid, forgetful, emotionally fragile. Making them question your perception of reality before you could tell anyone what was really happening." My hands were shaking so badly, I had to clasp them together. "When did this start?" "About a year ago. Right around the time he moved Tamara into that apartment." Nina pulled up more documents. "There's more. I contacted James from his office. You remember him from the Christmas party." I nodded mutely. "James said Darius has been telling people at work that you two separated months ago. That you're living apart, working through a divorce amicably. He's been introducing Tamara at work functions as his girlfriend." His girlfriend. I repeated, the words tasting like ash. Not his mistress. Not his affair. His girlfriend. Because in the story he's been telling, the marriage is already over, Nina confirmed. You just didn't know it yet. She pulled out another set of documents. I also found this. Divorce papers. Not filed yet, but drafted by his attorney 6 weeks ago. Look at what he's asking for. I read through them. Each line worse than the last. He wanted the house. Wanted most of the retirement accounts. Wanted sole ownership of assets we'd built together. And there, in the custody section for Sophia, our daughter, who is still only 17, he'd requested full custody, citing my mental instability and inability to provide a safe environment. He's trying to take my daughter, I whispered. He's trying to paint me as crazy, so he can take everything. There's a psychological evaluation scheduled for you, Nina said softly. Well, for Mrs. Thompson. He never told you about it, but it's on the calendar. His lawyer arranged it with a doctor who, conveniently, has testified in several cases about women with delusional jealousy disorders. The pieces clicked together with horrifying clarity. He was going to have me evaluated, I said slowly. Use my emotional instability as evidence. Maybe even get me temporarily committed or declared incompetent. And while you were dealing with that, Nina continued, he'd move Tamara in permanently, establish her as the stable presence in Sophia's life, and by the time you fought your way out of the legal mess, he'd have everything. I stood up, pacing to the window. My reflection stared back at me, a woman who looked 10 years older than she had a week ago. The affair was never the endgame, I said, pieces still falling into place. The affair was just the beginning. He's been systematically isolating you, Nina confirmed. Financially, socially, legally. Making sure that when he finally pulled the trigger, you'd have no money, no credibility, and no way to fight back. I turned to face her, something cold and hard settling into my chest where fear used to be. This wasn't an affair, I said, my voice steady for the first time in days. It was a takeover. I sent the text messages on Saturday morning, each one carefully worded to ensure maximum attendance. To Darius's parents, family dinner tonight at 6. Important announcement about our marriage. Please come. To Marcus at college, need you home tonight, sweetheart. It's urgent. To Sophia at Nina's, coming to get you at 5. Dinner at home with everyone. To Jennifer and Tom, our closest couple friends, having people over tonight. Would love if you could come. 6 p.m. To Robert Chen, our next-door neighbor who'd watched our kids grow up. Small gathering tonight. Your presence would mean a lot. And finally, to David Morrison, Darius's business partner. Darius would want you at our house tonight. Family matter. 6 p.m. sharp. I didn't tell Darius. I wanted him surprised, off balance, unprepared. Nina and I spent the day preparing. Not food, though I did cook because the irony of it mattered to me, but evidence. We loaded every video clip, every bank statement, every text message onto my laptop. Created a presentation that would leave no room for doubt or deflection. Are you ready for this? Nina asked as I adjusted my dress, the green one I'd been wearing the day I caught him, now freshly cleaned and pressed. A reminder of where this started. I've been ready since the moment that door opened, I replied. By 6 o'clock, my living room was full. Darius's parents sat on the couch, his mother clutching her purse nervously. Marcus had arrived an hour early, immediately sensing something was wrong. Sophia sat between her brother and Nina, both of them holding her hands. Jennifer and Tom stood near the kitchen, confused but present. Robert Chen sat in the armchair, his weathered face concerned. David Morrison checked his watch repeatedly, clearly uncomfortable. At 6:15, Darius walked through the door. He froze when he saw the crowd, his briefcase slipping slightly in his grip. I watched him calculate, watched his mind race through possibilities. His eyes found mine across the room, and I saw it, the flash of panic before he smoothed his expression into confused concern. Alicia? What's going on? Why is everyone here? Sit down, Darius, I said calmly, gesturing to the chair I'd placed in the center of the room. We need to have a conversation about our marriage. His mother started to stand. Maybe we should give you privacy. No, I interrupted firmly. Everyone here needs to witness this. Please, Mrs. Thompson. Stay seated. Darius sat slowly, and I saw him shift into performance mode. The concerned husband. The confused partner. Ready to play the role of the reasonable man dealing with his unstable wife. Honey, if you wanted to talk, we could have done this privately, he said gently, his voice pitched for the audience. You don't have to do this in front of everyone. Actually, I do, I replied, connecting my laptop to the TV. Because you've spent the last year telling people I'm emotionally unstable, paranoid, and delusional. So, I need witnesses to the truth. The first video clip started playing. Darius and Tamara entering our home. The timestamp read clearly, November 3rd, 9:17 p.m. 3 days after I'd left for Nina's. Darius's face went white. What is this? His father demanded. Evidence. I answered simply, letting the video speak. We all watched Tamara walk through my house, touching my things. Heard her call my clothes old lady things. Watched her throw my cardigan on the floor. The room was silent except for the audio from the TV. Then came the bedroom footage, just the parts where they discussed replacing everything, making the house theirs, erasing me. I'd edited out anything too intimate, not for his sake, but for my children's. Sophia made a small, choked sound. Marcus's jaw was clenched so tight, I could see the muscles jumping. Who is that woman? Darius's mother whispered, her voice breaking. That's Tamara Morrison, I said calmly, pausing the video. Darius's girlfriend. Or fiancé, depending on which neighbors you ask. He's been paying her rent for 18 months. He co-signed her apartment lease. He's spent over $70,000 of our marital assets on her. Alicia, this isn't what it looks like. Darius started, standing up. Sit down, Marcus said, his voice cold and hard. You don't get to talk right now. I played more clips. Darius on the phone with me, telling me to take my time and focus on myself, while Tamara modeled my robe in the background. Darius and Tamara in my kitchen, planning renovations, discussing paint colors for their bedroom. He brought her into our home. I continued, my voice steady despite my racing heart, into our bed, while telling me he loved me and supported my need for space. I pulled up the financial documents next, displayed on the screen in clear, damning detail. He took out a $50,000 line of credit against our house without telling me. He's been moving money into joint accounts with her. He used Marcus's college fund to support his second life. Dad. Marcus's voice cracked. My college fund? Darius tried to speak, but I wasn't finished. He's been telling our friends and neighbors that I'm mentally unstable, that I'm paranoid, that we're already separated. He's been introducing Tamara at work functions as his girlfriend, telling colleagues our marriage has been over for months. David Morrison stood up abruptly. Darius, is this true? David, I can explain. Is it true? David's voice cut through the room like a blade. The silence that followed was Darius's answer. I displayed the final document, the drafted divorce papers his lawyer had prepared. He had divorce papers drawn up requesting full custody of Sophia, claiming I'm an unfit mother due to mental instability. He scheduled a psychological evaluation for me without my knowledge, with a doctor who specializes in testifying against delusional women. Sophia stood up, tears streaming down her face. You were going to take me away from Mom? You were going to say she was crazy. Sophia, sweetheart, you don't understand. Don't call me that, she said, her voice shaking with fury. Don't you dare call me that. I handed Darius an envelope. These are real divorce papers. Filed this morning. You'll be served officially on Monday, but I wanted you to have them now, in front of everyone you lied to. His hands trembled as he took the envelope. You'll also be receiving notice of a forensic audit of our finances. My lawyer has evidence of financial misconduct, fraud, and misappropriation of marital assets. We'll be pursuing full restitution, including the college funds you stole. Stole is a strong word. Darius tried weakly. You stole from your son's education to pay your mistress's rent, I said simply. What would you call it? His mother was crying now, quiet sobs that shook her shoulders. His father sat stone-faced, staring at his son like he was a stranger. I walked to the dining room. picked up the plate I'd prepared, his favorite meal, pot roast with roasted vegetables, made exactly the way he liked it. I set it in front of him on the coffee table. "This is the last time I'll ever cook for you," I said quietly. Then I walked to the door and opened it. "Everyone is welcome to stay. But Darius, you need to leave. This is my house. You don't belong here anymore." The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday in March, exactly 4 months after I'd knocked on that door and watched my entire world collapse. I sat in the courthouse with Nina on one side and my lawyer on the other, watching the judge sign the papers that officially ended 17 years of marriage. Darius sat across the room with his attorney, his face drawn and gray. He'd tried to fight it at first, tried to claim the videos were obtained illegally, tried to spin the narrative back in his favor. But the evidence was overwhelming. The financial misconduct, the fraud, the systematic campaign to discredit me. Even his own lawyer had looked disgusted by the end. The settlement was fair, more than fair. I got the house, which I sold immediately. Got half of everything we'd built, plus restitution for the money he'd stolen. Got full custody of Sophia, with Darius receiving supervised visitation until she turned 18 in 6 months. She'd already told the judge she didn't want to see him at all. Marcus hadn't spoken to his father since that night in the living room. When the judge declared us officially divorced, I felt nothing. No relief, no grief, no anger. Just a strange, hollow quiet where Darius used to live in my heart. I walked out of that courthouse into spring sunshine, Nina's arm linked through mine, and took my first breath as a woman who belonged only to herself. The consequences for Darius came swiftly and without mercy. David Morrison dissolved their business partnership within 2 weeks of that family dinner, citing irreparable breach of trust and moral character. The firm's board voted to remove Darius from all leadership positions. His reputation in the industry, built over 15 years, crumbled in a matter of weeks. Word spread quickly in our social circle. The videos I'd shown that night had been witnessed by enough people that the story took on a life of its own. Jennifer and Tom stopped returning his calls. Neighbors who'd known us for years crossed the street when they saw him. His parents sent me a letter. His mother's handwriting, shaky and tear-stained. "We are so sorry for what our son did to you. You deserved better than this. You always deserved better." I cried when I read it. Not for what I'd lost, but for what I'd never really had. Tamara left him 6 weeks after everything came to light. Apparently, a man with no money, no reputation, and a mountain of legal debt wasn't as attractive as the successful executive who'd paid her rent. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd moved to another state, already posting photos with a new boyfriend. I felt nothing about that either. She'd been a symptom, not the disease. I found my apartment in April, a bright 2-bedroom in a neighborhood I'd always loved but Darius had said was too artsy. Large windows flooded the space with light. Hardwood floors that were mine alone. Walls I could paint any color I wanted. I chose yellow for the living room. Bright, warm, hopeful yellow. Sophia helped me pick out furniture, pieces I actually liked, not the traditional investment items Darius had insisted on. A turquoise couch. Mismatched throw pillows. Plants everywhere because I'd always wanted a jungle of greenery, and he'd complained they made the house look cluttered. Marcus came home for summer break and helped me hang artwork, bold, colorful prints that made me smile every time I walked past them. "This place feels like you, Mom," he said one afternoon, stepping back to admire a painting we'd just hung. The old house never did. He was right. That house had been a stage set for a life I thought I was living. This apartment was mine, chosen by me, filled with things that brought me joy instead of meeting someone else's standards. I started running in the mornings, something I'd given up years ago, when Darius complained about being woken up early. Started taking a pottery class on Wednesday evenings. Reconnected with friends I'd lost touch with, realizing too late that I'd let Darius's preferences slowly isolate me from people who actually cared. I got promoted at work in June. My boss told me I'd been performing at a higher level for months, like some weight had been lifted. I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying it. Sophia graduated high school in early June. I sat in the audience alone, but I didn't feel alone. Nina was there. Marcus was there. My real family. The one I'd chosen, and who'd chosen me back. When Sophia walked across that stage, she looked right at me and smiled. Not the polite smile she used to give when Darius was watching, but a real, genuine, radiant smile. That night, we had dinner in my little yellow living room. Just the three of us and Nina, eating takeout pizza on my turquoise couch, laughing about Sophia's valedictorian speech and Marcus's terrible jokes. "This is what family is supposed to feel like," Sophia said quietly, leaning her head on my shoulder. And I realized she was right. On a warm evening in late August, I sat on my small balcony with a cup of tea, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. 6 months since the divorce. 10 months since I'd knocked on that door. I thought about the woman I'd been then, afraid, confused, blaming herself for not being enough. I thought about how I'd spent years making myself smaller, quieter, more convenient, trying to fit into the shape of what I thought a good wife should be. I thought losing him would break me. But sitting there in my own space, living my own life, surrounded by my own choices, I understood the truth. I'd almost lost myself. That was the real danger. Not the divorce, not the betrayal, not even the financial devastation he'd tried to inflict. The real danger had been in the slow erasure of who I was, my preferences, my dreams, my voice, my worth, all sacrificed on the altar of making someone else comfortable. I'd let myself disappear one small compromise at a time. But I was back now, reclaimed, rebuilt, whole in ways I'd never been, even in the happy years. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Love you, Mom. Proud of you every single day." I smiled, typing back. "Love you too, sweetheart." The sunset deepened, the sky turning violet. Somewhere across the city, Darius was living whatever life he'd managed to salvage from the wreckage of his choices. But I wasn't thinking about him anymore. I was thinking about tomorrow, about the pottery class where I was finally getting the hang of centering clay, about the book club meeting on Thursday, about Sophia starting college next month and how we'd FaceTime every Sunday, about all the beautiful, ordinary, hard-won pieces of a life that was finally completely mine. I will never let anyone erase me again. That promise echoed in my chest like a heartbeat, steady and strong and absolutely unbreakable. If you're listening to my story and you see yourself in it, if you feel yourself disappearing a little more each day, please hear me. You are not crazy. You are not too sensitive. You are not asking for too much. You are enough exactly as you are. And you deserve a life where you don't have to shrink to fit. Take it back. Take yourself back. I did. And I've never been more free. Did you like my story? And what city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. Give us a like if you enjoyed this story. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. By the way, don't forget to subscribe. It encourages me to keep bringing more stories like this. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.